Welcome back. We're hanging out here in the video crypt. Just me, Bitter Karella, and of course, the cool skeleton over here. And I'm glad you're back because we wanted to do a little thing we call Hex for Trainables. Must be the season of the witch, yeah. This is the part of the show where we show you some tips and tricks and spells and charms you can use for yourself at home. And this week's episode, we're talking to the ladies and lady identifying people once again. This week on Hex for Trainables, we're going to be talking about a little spell, or actually rather spells, that you can use to keep your man in line. Because in the past we've talked about love spells, spells all about how to catch that certain someone in your net, make them just long for you, love for you, lust for you. Well, now you've got your man, and he is a huge piece of garbage because, let's face it, men are trash. What are you going to do now? You're stuck with this trash bag. Well, if you're, a woman or a woman identifying person in the old days, yeah, well, what are you going to do? So you're very often just stuck in a bad situation. Luckily, you've got magic. You can use magic to keep your trash bag of a husband in line. So, in fact, way back in the 1700s, in colonial Mexico, this was very often the only way that a woman could keep her trash bag husband in line. In 1715, for example, a woman named Magdalena de la Mata turned herself in to the Mexican Inquisition, confessing that she had used witchcraft to bewitch her husband and try to make him not be so terrible. Because apparently Magdalena's husband had a bit of a wandering eye and tended to, how should I say this? He tended to not take his marital vows very seriously. So she sought the aid of a local witch who told her exactly what to do. Magdalena was to get an egg, suck out all the juices of the egg. Presumably, I guess she could swallow them, or maybe not, whatever she wanted. That's not the important part. Once the egg is hollow, she was to stuff some of her husband's hair into it, then bury it, and water that buried egg with her husband's urine. Now, apparently this was actually fairly successful and kept her husband in line, but eventually Magdalena started feeling guilty, so she dug up the egg, burned it, and yelled, "To the devil with you," and then went to confess her sins to the Inquisition. They didn't really take her very seriously and just told her, like, okay, you sure you did witchcraft. Sure, get out of here. Go. Leave us alone. We're busy. Presumably doing inquisitorial things. Now, Magdalena was far from the only woman of her time involved in witchcraft, because the very next year, in 1716, a woman named Gertruda Gertrudis Antonia de Castilla also appeared before the Inquisition, despondent because, according to her, she had used witchcraft against her philandering drunk of a husband. Now, Gertrudis Antonia de Castilla said that she had met a friend of hers, Luciana, in the bathing house, and Luciana had offered her several spells to try and keep her husband in line. Let's bring out that spice cabinet, because we've got a few things here that they would use, and in fact this is probably one of the easiest spells that we've ever done, because it doesn't even involve any cooking. Literally, Luciana just tells Gertrudis, here's what you do. Just get some water, any old water will do. I mean, seriously, it doesn't even have to be like moon charge or anything. And then you just mix in a little bit of cemetery dirt. you mix that up. Give it to your husband with his morning cocoa. And he will be your willing slave. He will do anything and not give you any guff at all. And Gertrudis apparently is was a little nervous about giving her husband cemetary water. So Luciana actually offered a second way to keep her husband in line. So then Luciana says, listen, just bring me a rat, right? I'm gonna get its tail off. Yeah, you know what? Let's leave it on its rat. So you take that rat tail, you get some of your husband's hair, you tie them both together with a bit of agave fiber, just like this. And then you hang it. You just hang that on your husband's bedpost. And he will be yours to control. Now, the Inquisition didn't take Gertrudis's complaints very seriously, but they did have a bit of a question. They couldn't figure out whether Luciana, the woman who had brought Gertrudis this magic, whether she was Spanish or native. Apparently, if she was native, the Inquisition didn't have any jurisdiction over her, but if she was Spanish, then they did. And so they said that if she's Spanish, then tell her, stop doing that, you should be a good Christian, and be sure to scold her a little bit and tell her to throw away all her magic stuff. And as for Gertrudis, yeah, if anything that Luciana gave you, just burn it and say Hail Mary. That was pretty much it. The Inquisition, again, seemed to have much better things they wanted to spend their time on. Now, interesting, the Inquisition also ignored a letter that was attached to Gertrudis' filed by the local deputy in Gertrudis' town, mentioning that Luciana's husband was incredibly docile and also seemed to be suffering from a long, wasting illness. So the deputy was strongly implying that Luciana was, in fact, doing some sort of weird magic on her husband. But again, the Inquisition, busy guys, didn't have a whole lot to do. No, the opposite. They did have a whole lot to do, apparently. Still, those are several small spells that you can use to keep your man in line. Hopefully that'll, make it a little easier for you, so you won't need to deal with his garbage all the time. Because, let me tell you, men. Anyway. That's all the time we have with us on Deep Cuts this week. As always, I'm Bitter Karella. This is The Cool Skeleton. Please join us next time. And until then, enjoy your mortal coils.
Ghostbusters.